those guys are like my brothers, and they've watched me grow up, and they've, been with me through all the struggles, and our employees are just as important as our family here.
This is the Real Food, Real People podcast.
Reba Guzman grew up in one of the most well-known apple-growing families in Washington State, and we catch up with her in the middle of her family's apple and cherry orchards in Brewster, Washington. It's a fifth-generation family operation. She hopes it continues many generations to come, and she shares what she does on a daily basis to sell apples all over the world, grown right here in Washington State. This is the Real Food, Real People podcast. I'm Dylan Honcoop. Thank you for joining me as we continue on my journeys all over Washington State to get to know the real people behind our food. So you've been around farming your whole life.
Yes, very much born into it.
Yeah?
Yep.
Talk about that. What was growing up for you?
Let's see. Growing up for me was small town. We live in Brewster, Washington. So it's my mom's family's company. So she and my dad met in the orchard. She was a nurse. So my aunt was actually the one out in the orchard working. And she and my mom were out there one day. And my dad was like a crew boss. He migrated from Mexico every year. He started when he was 15.
Wow.
So he came up and was working in Brewster, and my aunt thought my mom might like him. And so she just happened to bring her to the orchard he was in.
Surprise, surprise.
Right? Yeah.
Was your mom in on this, or was she just kind of doing this like blind setup thing?
She was definitely on the prowl, I think. And so I think she was very open to be taken where there was some options. So, they rolled up to the orchard, and my dad was out there, and he tells it something like a tall blonde got out of the truck, and that was it. And so that was kind of where things started for them. And then, I came along soon after. So I'm the youngest of 5, and so all of my siblings work here. My sister is the assistant for my uncle, who's the CEO. My brothers, I have twin brothers. Brian is the head of food safety, and then Jason is our head mechanic, our head diesel mechanic. So we're all back. We grew up here in the orchards. Every summer you work cherry harvest. Apple harvest was a little different. We were obviously in school, so it wasn't as, you didn't have to be at work. But after practice or after school, there was usually something to go and do.
Apple harvest is quite busy, but it's not as intense as like cherries, right?
No, not nearly as intense as cherries. Apple harvest is it's not, I guess for me in sales, it's a little bit of a slow down, but not quite. I mean, you still have your ads to put together, and there's a hype up for the start and school starting, so you get those kind of inquiries, and you gotta get your business out there, especially during harvest.
We're totally going to get into like how you sell fruit, like you make that, because you're the person that makes the connection between the farm that's growing the fruit. You're working for them, but making that connection to the people who buy this and get it into the grocery store.
Yes.
But we'll get to that first. We're still on the how you grew up in farming.
Right.
So what were your jobs when you were a kid? You get to work in the orchard?
Oh yeah. So we grew up in the orchards. Our parents would just, at the time I thought I was working. 5, 6 years old. I was the boss. I was telling them what to pick, how to pick it. Things of that nature, when in reality my mom had left me out at the orchard to be babysat by a crew boss because she had things she had to go and do. But I was really given orders and things like that, but that was it. 4 and 5 years old, and some of the things we did, we worked every cherry harvest. You just do everything, whatever they need done. I tried picking and failed. I got fired pretty quickly. I picked all of the wrong things. The fruit that was too light, I was bruising it. I filled a bucket of cherries and dropped it. And that was a true disaster. We lugged buckets. That lasted all of 5 minutes before I just could not. No, I just paid a kid to do it for me. Yes, it takes a lot of muscle. It's a lot of physical work. But we did loading areas where the fruit comes out and you tag it with a ticket that's the orchard location. We keep track of the bins for the warehouse, how many we picked that day. And we ran all of that. It's just pure organized chaos. Mm-hmm. There were days where it was thousands of bins, and you don't realize at the time that those bins turn to boxes, and those boxes go to the stores, and it's this huge volume. At the time, it's just, a bin comes in, you tag it, and it goes, and you have to keep water on the fruit to keep it cold. We have a very sophisticated cooling process that we've implemented, and it starts in the orchard. So you start cooling the fruit right away, especially cherries, and then it's kept cold, like a cold chain, all the way through to the store. And so,
but not too cold, probably.
Right. No.
Get it into that probably like upper 30s, lower 40s, kind of.
We keep it at 33 degrees.
33. So you were like right on the edge.
Right on the money. Yep.
I suppose there's sugar in the fruit, so it probably doesn't freeze at 32.
So it does not freeze solid, no.
But if you start getting there, like things split and you can have a truck full of mush.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. You have to be very careful. Cherries are very temperamental.
Where do your cherries all go to?
Oh my goodness, that's a good question. They go everywhere, all over the U.S., all major retailers. You can find them all over the world, Asia, Southeast Asia, Europe, Mexico. Yep, we get them as far as we can. It's pretty neat. I sell into the Dominican Republic, and I got to go down there and meet my customer and to see our fruit not only in a different country, but like thousands of miles away. It's an incredible experience. Brings you very full circle to see it growing basically in your backyard, and then to watch it process through the warehouse, and then to sell it, and then go and see people buy it. It's pretty neat. It's a very neat experience.
So what's your day to day? Because again, you're a salesperson,
right?
And people might think, "Oh, salesperson," it's like somebody in a store or a car salesman. It's totally different ballgame, right?
Yeah, it's very different. So I went when I came home from college. They put me through like a developmental program. My cousin runs our warehouse, and he wanted me to start from the bottom and go all the way through and kind of see how I fit in and what I wanted to do. And I started in shipping, and that was a really good start for me. You see where the fruit is going, and you learn about packs and grades and things like that. And then from the shipping office, they moved me to the warehouse where I did a gamut of things, a little bit of HR, a little bit of grower accounting, very little. I'm not an accountant by any means. And then I did a little bit.
Me either.
They've got their work cut out for them.
I'm a words person, not a numbers person.
Yes. And then I worked a little bit in production, and that was where I got more familiar with our sales department. And as crazy as it sounds, I hadn't ever really paid attention to the sales office.
Yep.
They were like, I knew where it went and what they did, very general. But at the warehouse, you really work closely with the salesmen. They tell you what they need and how they need it and when they need it. And at the warehouse, it feels like you're just packing to make inventory.
Yep.
But it doesn't work quite like that at all. Some places really box you in, and they need a very specific size and a very specific grade. And at the warehouse, you feel like, well, you can send anybody anything, but it's not like that at all at the sales office. So day to day is very busy. We do our own trucking. Well, we hire trucks to do our loads for us. So a lot of what I do is organizing trucks and getting them to the right warehouse and kind of organize in that way. And then I talk to most of my customers every day. when I first started, I thought it was like a very just cut and dry kind of relationship. What do you need? What's the price?
Yeah.
Let me send that to you. That was it. I didn't want to small talk. I was too scared. And what do you say to these people? But I'm a very personable person, so I connect, or I want to connect to you, and I end up telling them my whole life story because I can't help it. It's not very often that the salesperson is also the grower.
Yeah.
And when you can tell your customer, this is my piece of fruit, this is my apple, I can't just sell it to you for cheap because it's my livelihood, and I have to put, food on my table.
And not just you, it's your whole family.
Right.
And there's a lot of history and work.
Yeah. We are 5th generation. And so every Christmas, they bring out your sales and how'd you do? When my Christmas presents depend on how I sold, I'm going to sell as hard as I can. But, you also have to be considerate of your customer and the market that they're in. And I deal primarily with food service, and that's going to schools. And my goal for food service is if a kid can see that apple at their school and then go to the store with their mom and recognize it and pick that out and bring it home, then, I've done my job. But it's pretty neat to sell into that market. It's very very specific. It can be very frustrating at times.
Yeah. Because it's more like government contracts in a lot of cases, probably, right?
Yep. It's pretty set in stone. They have a price that they need, and that's it. And if you can't make it, then you don't get that sale. No. And that can be discouraging. It's a very low rewarding job, but this is my whole life and my family's life, and I have huge goals for us, and I'm certainly not going to let anybody down, and I want to know I'm doing my best every day for them. I think very big picture. The day-to-day is busy and can be very frustrating at times, but big picture, we're going to be here for the long run, and I'm not working for myself. I'm working for my family and for the Lord, and I want to, make sure I'm putting the best foot forward.
Back to like your customers, which are people like, they would be what would be called the middlemen in the food system, right?
Yeah.
They're wholesale buyers of this stuff that end up, passing it on in one shape or form to retail or schools like you work with. What are the kinds of things that they want? Like you talked about, it can be very specific. So let's just go with apples specifically. Like what are the different things that they could be looking for? Bigger, smaller, color, shape? What's all the...
When I first started with the food service, they all were very much the same. We want small sizes, kid-friendly sizes, and they can't eat a huge 72 softball size apple. I mean, a kid's not going to finish that. Yeah. Or even if they're for jails, you can't send huge pieces of fruit because it can be used as a weapon.
Oh, really?
Heard? That's what one guy told me, and I was just like, wow, a weapon, huh? Okay. But they have to be small sizes. They don't have to be perfect. That's the nice thing, is it doesn't have to be a perfect piece of fruit. It has to be a good piece of fruit. And I sell very confidently knowing that we have grown good fruit, solid fruit, and I don't have to worry, this isn't going to make it. It's, going to have issues at arrival. No, I know for certain that my cousins have dialed in our CA storing abilities to store the fruit for the exact right amount of time. My uncle has grown our fruit to be picked at the peak time so that as it stores, it matures nicely and well. And my cousin Johnny runs the fruit so that it's packed at the precise time. You have to store it and pack it all exact so that it gets to the market well.
So much to it.
Yeah, it's very, there's a science to it.
Yeah. It is cool though. I mean, and this is probably why apples are like the quintessential fruit. Like if somebody's going to hold up a picture of fruit,
Yeah.
or even if they're going to reference, Adam and Eve, like it's an apple.
Yeah.
Why? Well, it's something that is fresh fruit, but can be stored and kept.
Yep.
Even pre-modern technology could be kept for quite a while. But now, with the way you guys are able to store it, controlled environment, it can be kept, a year?
Yeah, up to a year, yep.
It's amazing. And it's still fresh fruit. It's not
still
frozen.
fresh.
It's not processed.
That's the key part, is it is still fresh. My grandpa was one of the leading innovators of CA storage, and he helped develop it and brought it here. And without that, I don't know how you would work things.
So what CA storage? Technically, what is that? How does that work?
CA storage is controlled atmosphere. So you suck out the oxygen, and the fruit releases the natural ethanol, and then you control that. Yeah.
Fascinating.
It is. It really is quite fascinating to learn about all that.
It makes sense.
Right.
Like they're pretty sealed.
Yeah.
But not 100%.
I mean,
impervious, I guess, or
if you put it in a fruit bowl, like bananas and apples, that banana's gonna ripen your apple very quickly because it releases the ethanol so much faster.
So the banana is having an effect on the apples that are next to it.
Yeah, same with like pears or peaches. If you put pears in your fruit bowl with apples, they're going to ripen and be ready to eat a lot sooner.
No kidding. I've always just thought about that having to do more with like sunlight exposure and temperature. Does that make a difference on like if they're sitting on the counter in the sun versus in the shade, or if they're warm or cold? Or
I don't know that specific, but
the secrets of apples.
I don't put my fruit bowl in the sun just because there's flies.
Yeah.
But no, I think that if I have hard pears, I put a banana in there and I know it's going to ripen, or an avocado will ripen pretty quickly if you put it in with some fruit.
Yeah.
That's how I think of it.
Fascinating. So it's actually like
you kind of have like a CA room in your fruit bowl.
Awesome. So harvest for apples is just kind of starting right now, right?
Yes. Yep. We have, early gala started in about mid-August. So we pick cherries and apples now at the same time. Wow. Crazy. When I was little, there was never a thought in my mind that we'd be picking apples and cherries at the same time. It's just amazing how things have advanced.
Is that just because like galas, the variety are so much earlier, or what? And you have probably other cherry varieties that are later, and so they overlap?
Yeah, so my grandpa planted cherries in high elevation, so they would be ready later. High elevation allows us to pick later into August. So we have those above Lake Chelan at about 3,000 feet, 2,700 feet, something like that.
Crazy.
And so we are able to pick much later into the summer, which is very beneficial, especially for like that late market.
Yeah, because people, I'd love to have fresh Washington cherries year round, but it's just not going to happen. Please don't. Yeah, you don't want to be harvesting them year round. But,
absolutely not. I can't handle that.
Well, and that's something that consumers expect with a lot of things now.
Yeah.
And what they don't realize is like there's a season. Like if you look at a map, there's a season there and a season there, and then Southern Hemisphere, and like that's how they keep where their lettuce, their different fruits are all. Yeah. And so to get more of that market. Yeah. You have to do it for a longer amount of time during the harvest season.
Yep. So we have those high elevation cherries that allow us to pick later. And then we used to get cherries from Canada. And so we had a Canadian grower, and I went and worked up on his farm one summer. Wildest experience I've ever been through. They pick at night. So, yeah, I was just completely mind blown. I had heard about it, but...
Why do they do it at night?
It's cooler.
Yeah.
So it's much cooler at night, and then they wear headlamps so they can see the color. And I was just fascinated by it. I was exhausted
Yeah.
You work a normal 6 a.m. to 7, and they start picking at 9 or 10 at night, and they just pick all night. Yeah,
Wow.
and they're French Canadian, so it's pretty wild. They were the funniest group of people, but yeah, it was a blast up there, and just a whole different experience, a whole, new learning. It was great. It was awesome.
Stopping briefly to thank our sponsors. Washington Red Raspberries is supporting the podcast this half of the season. We thank them very much for doing that, as well as producing America's Raspberries. And you can learn a lot more at redraspberry.org. Also, wadairy.org, Dairy Farmers of Washington. That's their homepage. Make sure to stop by there and check out what dairy farmers here in Washington State are doing to produce some of the best, healthiest, tastiest milk and dairy products in the world. wadairy.org, again, is their website, and they support the podcast. Also want to remind you about the Great Washington Shakeout that is coming up this month, the 20th of October at 10:20 a.m. So 10:20 on 10:20. It's a free event, but schools are participating. Businesses can check in as well. Shakeout.org/Washington is the webpage. You can check that out for more information on what you can do for the Great Washington Shakeout to be prepared in the case of an earthquake. We've talked about that for so many years here in the Pacific Northwest, the big one. And what would it be like? What would happen? Are you prepared? Do you know what you would do? That's what the Great Washington Shakeout is all about. And again, more details on how you can participate in this event and test your readiness and make sure you know what to do in the case of the big one or any earthquake that may come our way here in the earthquake-prone Pacific Northwest. Shakeout.org, again, is the website, shakeout.org/Washington. And finally, also want to thank Mana Insurance Group here on the podcast for supporting what we do and sharing these stories. You can find them online at manainsurancegroup.com. They're all about planning ahead, just kind of like the Great Washington Shakeout, planning ahead so you have something in place if and when things do go wrong on a variety of fronts, insuring your home, your auto, life insurance. They help you with your health insurance as well. They do so many different things. Again, manainsurancegroup.com. That's where I do my insurance stuff. And I know the guy went to high school with the guy that founded the company. Great guy. And I know a lot of the great people on his team as well. Now we go back to our conversation in Brewster, Washington with Reba Guzman. So earlier you were talking about what you do selling fruit, and you said you're confident in it. You don't worry about it. You know that your family and all the different family members, like you described, all the different aspects of this whole operation. Expand on that more, though. Like, what is it that you know is like? How are you so confident? Why do you trust that they are doing such a good job? What's the spirit behind it?
Yeah, I would say the spirit behind my family and what we do, it started 150 years ago with my great grandma. With the great.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're fifth generation. And so my great grandpa came from Nova Scotia with an apple seed in his backpack and just planted it, to see what it would do.
Wow.
And
what brought them here?
So he came from Nova Scotia. That was Dan Gamble. And he came from Nova Scotia with the apple seed. Just, to try something new, I guess. I don't exactly know what brought him. I know the Gebbers came during the gold rush. There was supposedly a gold rush up the Methow River. And so that brought them out here. And they homesteaded in Pateros, Washington, and they did potatoes. And then the Gambles had a lumber mill and a hotel. And they had the warehouse, and my great-grandma Martha married John Gebbers, and they started the apples. And they had my grandpa, an only child, Dan Gebbers, and he was amazing. to say the least. He was imaginative. He was so creative. He could take a piece of land and cultivate it and craft it into something so much better than it was. He taught us to be stewards of the land. And he told us, God made this land to be used, and you're going to use it for what it's made. And he taught us to work very hard, and he didn't let us. He used to say milk toast. He didn't let us be milk toast. He'd come up and elbow you and right between the shoulder blades and tell you to stand up straight and have some backbone and, take care of business. And that's what we do. And I'm confident in my selling because of what our ancestors did. During the Depression, my great-grandpa and my grandpa walked the streets of Southern California selling our apples when other people were going broke. And it was a very bad time in our country, and to see them and learn about them working hard during that is, you can't let them down, and you gotta keep the story going. I said it once before, this is more than just me. It's big picture, and it's more generations. It's going to be here for a long time. And I think that my great-grandma instilled in my grandpa an ability to work and to work hard. And
well, it was survival for people in that era.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And my grandpa taught it to us. And my grandma still to this day asks me what I've sold, how I'm selling. She counts the trucks. I go and take her to the coffee shop every day. And as we drive down the highway, she counts the trucks at the warehouse. And if there isn't a lot there, she wants to know what Daniel and I are doing and why we aren't selling. And it's, that's a lot of pressure. And I don't want to let her down. And I better have my ducks in a row when she asks, how I'm doing and what the price is and where the market's at and things like that. And she keeps, she keeps us in line, and she wants to know the work that's being done, and there's no slowing down. And so it's she drives the spirit, I guess. She set the bar, she set the tone. We don't get to relax. There's no relaxing in this business. There's always work to be done somewhere. And I'm in sales now, and I have a nice cushy air conditioned job, and I'd love to be out in the orchards working with everybody. And we have timberland also, and to be up in the mountains would be great. But somebody has to sell it, and I love telling the story. I love being able to connect with my customers and tell them that I am the farmer, and I do grow that, and I know for a fact that it's going to be a good piece of fruit because I've watched it, or I've been there. My dad is one of our head fieldmen, and he tells me all the time how to prune and how to thin and why we do it. And he tells me about sun exposure and when to irrigate. And when I was little, he used to take me out to change the water lines, and it was just like the worst job ever. And you have to go through and unplug the sprinklers and get shot in the face with water. And it was a lot and very annoying and tedious, but when you think big picture, it's very important.
And what about your dad's heritage? Did he grow up in farming in Mexico?
No, so he's from Mexico. He started migrating up here when he was 15. He had a drive and a willingness, and he had to help provide for his family. His dad died at a very young age, and there were 10 of them, so he had to help. My grandma Francisca made tortillas in their little village farming town.
Yeah. What part of Mexico?
He's from Garcia. And so she made little tortillas just for the town and tried to sell those. But 10 kids is a lot.
Yeah.
My dad's twin brother passed away when they were very little from dehydration, got sick, and he got dehydrated. Same with one of his little sisters. And it's sad, you don't think that would happen in this day and age, but it does. And he brought his 8 siblings up here and his mom. And my grandma lived with us for a little while, and she would make little dolls for me and little aprons and things like that. But he grew up very poor. His toys were corn cob type dolls, and he whittled out little knives and things like that. And he was an ornery bugger, and he drove my grandma nuts. But to leave your family at 15, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
And to truck this far, to work and to take everything you've made back to your family.
Yeah.
That says a lot. And people are still doing that. They do that now. And our employees are closer to me than, family sometimes. And being able to work in the warehouse and in the orchard, I really get to know them and their families. And we're a small town, we're a small community, and you become very close, and you hear their stories, and they don't want to live here. They want to, make their money and go back. Mm-hmm. Some of them have families that they're leaving, others have farms that they're leaving, and they have to go and come back and work that when they get back down there.
So is this typically like the guest worker, the H-2A program?
Yep, the H-2A workers primarily come up here, and they come up here and they go back. But yeah, they've become very close with us, and one of my dad's guys, he's an H-2A worker, and my dad's just taken him under his wing, and I think he's actually closer to my dad than I am at times, but that's okay. I'm not gonna go feed my dad's chickens, so.
Well, your dad gets him because he lived that same life.
He absolutely did, and he goes back every winter, and it's like this sad ordeal, but he's coming back in the spring, and there's something to look forward to. But those guys are like my brothers, and they've watched me grow up, and they've been with me through all the struggles, and our employees are just as important as our family here. And a lot of what we do isn't for us, but it's for our community, and we're helping these families out, and that's a huge part of it.
You talk about with you through all the struggles, like what's that? Like what have been the hard times? What's been difficult to make it through?
Oh man, there was a bad weather season, a bad crop. It just is it takes a toll on you, and when you can't control anything, but those guys go out and they pick as hard as they can in the rain, in the snow, whatever the elements are, those freezing cold mornings, you all struggle through that, and it says a lot about those people to work so hard. Yeah. But yeah, they've watched us go through markets that don't sell well when, you have to pay them, but they know how hard you're working to pay them. Yeah. Because, if it's a bad market, there's not a lot.
So, talking about guest workers coming here from Mexico and other countries, that's been a controversial thing, as I'm sure you're aware, and some people say, oh, that program's bad, it's exploiting people. That's not the story that you're sharing here, though. Where's the disconnect? What's the truth about what goes on with workers and how they're treated?
Well, from what I know and from what my family does, they come up here and they're very well taken care of. I mean, they have good housing, they have transportation to and from town. You help them with their groceries, whatever they need.
Well, and your dad, having done the same thing, would know. Yeah. Like, is this good or bad?
Right. Yeah, and he can tell you the struggles. It's significantly better than when he did it. He's shocked. He showed me one of our old picking cabins is out in one of our orchards, and it's just nothing now. Yeah. But when he was young, he lived there, and he said it was a bed with a pillow, a mattress, and a blanket. And now you get dishes and very nice blankets and very nice pillows, and you're well taken care of. And back in the day, my great grandma used to ring the bell for the cookhouse, and they used to take it out, and my grandma helped cook for all of those guys. And she can tell you about feeding the workers and lunch breaks out there with them and things like that. And so, yeah, the conditions are good, I would say.
Good.
I don't know where that disconnect happens. I think it's the image that's made. These people want to come up here and work. It's not, nobody's forcing them by any means. It's a good way to make a living for them. And one guy's made enough money to not have to keep coming. He's made enough to take care of his own agave farm down in Mexico.
Awesome.
And he just said, yeah, I'm done. I can stay with my family. And, it's been fun coming up here. He's been coming up here for the last 5 or 6 years. And he's seen his family. He calculated that he has come up here 128 months. And in those 128 months, he's seen his own family 30 months. And I can't imagine
That's hard.
doing that. I can't imagine leaving my family for months on end at a time.
But like you're saying, this guy in particular, that was an investment that he made, and now he doesn't have to do it anymore.
Now he doesn't have to do it anymore. He's figured things out, and he can, start his life back over in Mexico and not have to worry about coming up here every year and being away from his family. So good for him. I pat him on the back for that. That's a job well done there.
Having seen all the things he's seen from both sides, I'm thinking about your dad here. What does he think about some of this, labor controversies and some of these other things that go on right now? He would have a unique perspective on that.
We don't talk about that. He just said it's not. I mean, yeah, it's a struggle leaving your family and getting here, but as far as like when you decide that this is what you want to do, he said it's like not a hard process. It's the way you go about it, I think.
Yeah, and there's other stuff with labor too, and like pay and overtime and how that's working, and it seems like there's a lot of people wanting to build controversy or something. When I talk with average folks on the ground, there doesn't seem to be the hair on fire kind of thing that you hear from people in the political realm.
Yeah, I'm probably not the best to answer that question. I know there's a lot of, there's regulations and there's minimum wage requirements, and that's just kind of what you're faced with. In farming, you are faced with a new challenge every day, and that's just one you take on and you go forward. You figure it out and you go forward. I've heard the frustration is in sales. You have to take that into consideration. It's expensive to pay for labor, and if you're not selling your fruit for enough, that is going to affect the grower and how they pay their workers.
But I would imagine your customers also want to know that what they're buying from you is being produced ethically, and people are being treated well, and all that stuff.
Right. So, I tell my customers all the time, our workers are good. They're happy. It's, they enjoy harvest. It's what they came here to do. Yeah. On rainy days, they're mad. Nobody wants to sit out. So they're good. And, I shouldn't say but it's good to be able to tell your customer, I can't meet you at that price because I have a bottom line I have to make, and I have to think about labor. I have to think about what the grower has put in. It's not free to grow that fruit, and it takes a lot of hard work, and everything costs something, and you have to take that into consideration. And if you have to miss the sale because the price just isn't right, that's just a choice you make. But the customer doesn't get mad, or it's not a bad thing. They understand. I think right now we all understand things are a lot more expensive than they were. Right. And 3 years ago I could sell you something for $15, but not now. It's significantly higher, and everybody understands that. And so it'd be nice if everybody wants something cheap, but you can't always make that work. And I can understand that. I'm a consumer. I want cheap fruit, but I want quality fruit, and I expect what I buy to be good. And if it's cheap and not good, then, you're paying for what you want, I guess.
Yeah, get what you pay for.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have to take that into consideration, I think, as a consumer too.
Did you always want to do this? Be connected to the farm?
Yes, absolutely. I knew at a very young age that I wanted to do this. When we were little, we called my grandma's house the big house. And at that time, our orchard office was there. It was attached to her house. And so I lived there. But not with my grandma. We lived just behind her. But all of my cousins and everybody would end up at the big house. And after school, we would ride bikes around those. Before, there was this orchard all around her house. There's not now. It's a warehouse. But we would ride our bikes around those orchards, and we would, call each other on the walkie-talkie radio. We've got a pipe broke, and out at Crazy Rapids, or, we were just rambling different orchard names off, and there's a broken pipe, or there's frost damage, or whatever, and we were calling each other on the radios and things like that. Or we would go into the office, and we would play under our parents' desks, and we would go through the garbage. I would sit under my aunt's garbage and go through it, and there were long rolls of like calculator tape.
Yep.
We would take out and play with it. We were paying the bills and paying so-and-so and this and that, and cutting payroll checks, and it was payday or whatever. And so, yeah, I would say I knew at a young age I was coming home. I knew what I wanted to do. It was just figuring out how I was going to best contribute. It's definitely taken my cousins to help me figure that out. Starting in the shipping office was a very good place to start. After college, of course, coming out of college, I wanted to be a boss and start at the top and start in the orchard, and no, I wasn't going to work in the office, and I didn't want to be, stuck to a desk or anything like that.
Yep.
But that changed pretty quickly. You get humbled pretty fast, and the shipping office was a good place to start. I learned, from the bottom. They took me out, and I had to work for a month on every packing line. And so I had to sort, and I had to pack. I had to stack boxes.
So you've seen
I've seen it all. I've done it all. I know the struggles. I know when employees get mad and frustrated with the job. I can understand. It is a lot sometimes. And I think it takes that to really understand what we're doing big picture and why we do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a whole new appreciation for that packed box after watching it sort. The sorting line doesn't stop, and the level of dizzy is like none other. And doing that all day, every day, it can take a toll on you, and those ladies have it cut out. But our packing facilities are so advanced now. When I was little, it was packed with like hundreds of people sorting and packing and heisters and all of that. Now it's very sophisticated. We have infrared lighting to see the inside of the fruit, and where there used to be 50 sorters, there's maybe 5 or 6.
Wow.
And where there used to be 100 people packing, there's maybe 50, maybe 30 or something like that. And there's machines now that stack the boxes and put them on a pallet, and it's very advanced, and it's neat to see how it's come along. And it's just going to get better, and I'm excited for that. Your fruit quality is going to get better. Their growing practices are always improving and always changing. And my cousin's very intelligent, and he's got it very dialed in on the best way to grow. And it all comes back to that confidence in selling.
It's interesting. You said you wanted to start or wanted to be in the field, but you got to start in the office and work your way up the chain. A lot of people would think it's the other way, that you want to start in the field and work your way up to working in the office. Yep. And you're saying you see it the opposite of that. Yeah,
I want to be in the field.
So what does it take to get there?
I'm still trying to figure it out. It's nice being in a nice air-conditioned office when it's 100 degrees and everybody else is out in the field. But you also kind of feel like you're missing out. I love being able to go to the orchard and see the fruit being picked and then come back to my sales desk and send pictures or call my buyer and say, you know what, we're picking premium Honeycrisp right now. Like I'm looking at them. I will send you these apples right now. You will get them tomorrow. And, to be able to sell with that kind of confidence.
Yeah.
I called one of my customers from our orchard one time and told him I've got premium Honeycrisp that are literally in the bin. The guy is picking them right now. And he's ensuring that they are not bruised. And my customer was like, wow, that's pretty neat that you can call me from the orchard and tell me that. And so it's cool being able to go from the desk to the field and back and, be able to report with confidence that the fruit is good and we're doing really well.
Well, and you see that part of the food system that I think the fewest people see, which is like the wholesale level, right? Because I think everybody, for the most part, sees like the retail level. They know what's in the grocery store. People, they may have an idea, they may not, of what happens on the growing end of it. Mm-hmm. And maybe even they've gardened a little bit or something. They have some, but it's kind of this mystery of what happens between growing it and getting it to the grocery store.
Right.
From your experience being in that world now with your current role, what would you say people don't understand or need to understand about how that part of our food system works?
I would say maybe the disconnect is that as a farmer, as a grower, you're always trying to grow the best piece of fruit possible, and you want to be able to satisfy every market level. Wholesale, you really don't know exactly where it's going to go. It could go to a grocery store, it could go to a restaurant, school, a jail, it could really go anywhere. I can sell with confidence knowing it can be put anywhere. Yeah. It's not, I don't sell specifically for a school. No, because I want my customer to know that they can send it wherever they need to, like where they're going to get the best price for it.
Yeah. I think some people feel that whole part of the food system is kind of maybe even a little bit scary because it's a mystery and you can't see it. So like, what are they doing to our food, or where does it go, and why does it have? Why are there all these logistics and warehouses and trucks and then other warehouses and direct to consumer stuff is cool.
Yep.
But for the most, for the food that most of the hundreds of millions of people in this country eat, like that's just not realistic.
Yeah.
Right. So that you probably, like you described, you deal with logistics quite a bit in your job.
Yeah, there's that's a huge part of what we do. I would say if you're a consumer and you're wondering, where's my food coming from? How is it coming to me, or how am I getting it? It's coming from a farmer, number one. Mm-hmm. It is coming from somebody who is growing it passionately. We want to grow good, solid fruit for the consumer. They're our number one priority. We wouldn't have anything if we didn't have an end consumer. And so I can tell you it's coming from somebody who wants you to enjoy that piece of fruit. We have joy in what we do. Is every day the best? No. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Yeah. It's a joy to be able to work with my entire family and to see everybody every day, and to know that we are using the best growing practices possible. As a consumer, you should feel good about what you're eating. We are taking extra precautions to get it to you safely and timely. We make sure our drivers are rested and paid. They want paid for what they do. It's a lot of work to drive across the country, and a
lot of people don't think about that part. It takes truck drivers to get food from the farm to you.
And we had a little truck shortage there last winter, and it was really something to see. Without a truck driver, I can't get my fruit. to West Virginia.
Yeah.
And West Virginia is very far away when you start trying to find somebody or anybody to take it.
Yeah.
And without those truck drivers, you really are, at a loss. I mean, you have to get it there somehow. And we use planes, trains, trucks, you name it, to get it there. And we work hard to make all of the pieces of the puzzle fit. We ensure we grow a good piece of fruit. We ensure that it's kept cold and, packed properly to be shipped out. There's state regulations for trucks and things like that ensure they're resting and sleeping. And, we follow all of those types of rules. And then we know when it gets to our customer that it's going to be stored in their facilities well also. You can't just, ship something willy-nilly and hope that they store it in a cold place.
They could mess up all of the hard work that you've done to get it to that place.
When I went down to the Dominican Republic, one of the main things my buyer showed me was his cold facility, because a lot of buyers down there just store on the street or in like a truck, but it's not refrigerated or anything like that. And my customer was very, very determined to show me he had a cold room and that he could store this well and properly, and that it would, last the month or two that it needed to until the next shipment would get down there. And so it's those kinds of things that you keep in mind, and you work hard to make sure the rules are kept, I guess. Everybody's well taken care of, and I know that end consumer is getting a piece of fruit that I have worked hard to help grow, pack, and ship. And I know that at the end customer is getting a good piece of fruit.
So what's your dream? Where do you want to end up with all of this?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say my dream is to see my family's business go on. We're in our 5th generation, and I expect to see it go for generations past. The next group is already here and working, and they're involved just like we were growing up. They understand the orchard life. They understand, you don't have a summer break. There's no such thing as that. And my dream is to see it keep going, to see my great-grandma's vision lived out. She had a vision to see this go beyond her. My grandpa had that same vision, to see it, evolve and continue for the next generation and the next one. And so we're working hard to do that. And I hope that we have taught the next group how good this can be. It's a struggle. It's hard, but it is good and it is rewarding. And the Lord has blessed us tenfold in what we get to do every day. And it's a joy to do it. And I love it. And I can't imagine doing anything different.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this detail and the history and like your story, which all started with the classic farm romance.
I guess so.
With your parents.
Yeah.
I love that. And thanks for having me here too.
Yeah, thank you. And it's a pleasure to be able to share our story and to get it out there. And I hope people can appreciate it and, know that their fruit is coming from people that really love what they do.
This is the Real Food, Real People podcast. These are the stories of the people who grow your food.